Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for the 1004 show. We're here with the co-founder and COO of Feedtrail, Paul Jaglowski. Now, for all of you listening and wondering how to spell that, I'll let you guys figure that out for yourselves. So Paul, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So, the quick and dirty, what is Feedtrail?
Feedtrail is a real-time customer insights platform that enables businesses to collect real-time feedback from their customers to ensure customer satisfaction at all key touch points. So rather than the generic post-experience survey that I'm sure many of you have taken in your life, this is a way for companies to really get down and dirty into the details of that customer's experience and then identify opportunities for improvement at key touch points.
I've used it for one of our events here at Hatch for Startup Night. We got 25% of the people who attended to respond, which was actually pretty good for us. Normally we probably get, 10% response rate, something like that. So we were encouraged by that. How many times have you practiced that kind of elevator? You did well.
Thank you. It's evolved a bit, to be honest, over time, but gosh, I lost track after a couple hundred times.
So I think something that's very, very unique, and one of the things I like to do with the show is find the unique in you. And so you went to school, you were a collegiate athlete, played baseball.
That's right.
Rumor is you were decent.
Above average, right?
Above average. If you played in college, you probably were. But then you went and did what after that, after you graduated?
So immediately after graduating, I moved to DC to work for a fintech startup called On Deck Capital. Great company, was there for almost a year. Yep. And as they were getting ready to go public, I left to go into management consulting. So I did that for the last 2.5 years, doing strictly management, process improvement, and strategy consulting until 2 months ago when I went full-time on Feedtrail.
And you worked in corporate America or no?
Yeah, I did.
And so were you doing corporate America and then decided to go full-time on Feedtrail, or how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, so we started building Feedtrail about a little over a year before I went full-time. So I was moonlighting, working every day until about midnight, waking up at 6 with tons of Slack messages, emails, honestly having to take PTO to go to customer meetings for Feedtrail. And then eventually became too much to handle. I'd burned through all my PTO and we had paying customers, and it was time to make the leap to full-time.
Did you set out before knowing that, like what that number was? Like, we need to be making this for me to go full time, or how did you kind of make that decision?
So to be honest, my plan for a long time was to go to business school. So I'd taken a GMAT prep course, studied for months, taken the GMAT, and then Feedtrail I got invited to join Feedtrail, and it was more of a hobby. And then when I realized, hey, this has some legs, let's see what this is made of, I put business school in the back burner and started focusing all my extracurricular time on building this company. And then, but no, like you asked, there was not a certain number we were looking for. Ideally, we'd like to cover living expenses for the founders before we went full time. And that's what I guess we were just about able to do when I did it.
Very interesting. You ever think about going back to business school, or is what you're learning now more valuable?
Maybe. I won't say never. To be honest, this last year has been like going through the business school of hard knocks. My bedstand has had 10 books on it at all times, ranging from accounting to legal to term sheets to stuff with VC funding to marketing to sales. It's amazing. The amount I've learned in the last year, I think would trump any 1 or 2 year business program.
And you saved several $100,000
I did.
while doing it.
I did.
One thing that I think is interesting, and you and I have known each other for a couple of months now, is you've been trying to bootstrap this for as long as possible. You guys have. Before we get to kind of that, how did you guys start finding your first customers?
Yeah, a lot of old school sales.
It's like picking up the phone, or
literally picking up the phone and calling people, knocking door to door, going through friends and family, asking for introductions. We have a few strategic advisors. One has been very fundamental in getting us some high profile introductions. And honestly, we kind of had to tell them, act like we were full-time at least to get some of these initial big deals, but now we're legitimately full-time, so it's getting easier and easier to bring on new customers and then spend the time throughout the day calling, emailing, following up, and hustle sales.
Very cool. So let's pretend I'm a prospect.
Okay.
What's the call like?
Okay, so what industry are you in? That's a good
who's a good target customer?
So right now we're focusing on the healthcare and banking verticals. We can do healthcare.
Okay. So
Okay.
I'm a healthcare VP at the local hospital.
Okay. So I would say, hey, Mr. Miller, how's your day going? Do you have a few minutes to chat?
It's terrible. It's been a rough day.
I'm sorry to hear that. Just calling quickly to see if you had a chance to review some of the information I sent you earlier this week regarding customer retention and how we're working with X, Y, and Z to help them improve their patient loyalty and patient retention. So what are you guys currently doing at Centera?
So you would have sent them something beforehand.
Yeah, we generally send out emails in advance with maybe a case study or a basic few lines about what we're doing and how we're helping similar companies.
Yeah.
That way they have something to reference when we do that follow-up.
How much qualifying are you doing beforehand to make sure that person is more likely to be the right fit than not?
Right. So like I had mentioned, we were building this for over a year before we went full time. So we had a lot of time to find that product market fit and also that ideal customer profile. So as far as the healthcare goes, we know there's certain positions that have, one, the authority to make a decision on a tool like the Feedtrail, two, the interest, and three, the responsibility of ensuring that patient satisfaction, patient retention, et cetera. So it took us a little while to really narrow down our key customer and our key profile of the individual we're reaching out to, but we think we really have it figured out.
Product market fit is what? So
I guess I can tell you the whole story. Initially, it was any service-based company because every customer experience is personal. Every single one's unique. And as a customer, you want to have that hands-on positive experience every time you go into a business. Mm-hmm. So we started by knocking door to door. We had mom and pop restaurants. We had fast food chains. We had mass transportation, banking, retail, hospitality, events. Now we've narrowed that to healthcare because patient satisfaction is a huge deal for them, mm-hmm. and banking as well as professional services. So
do you fire those other clients?
No, of course not.
So you keep them?
No, yeah, and certainly. So we brought on a new airport last week. That's not our ideal customer, but they have a need for this, and sure, we'll service that need. But as far as outreach goes, we're not spending the hours finding the emails and calling these people.
So you keep them as a client, but you recognize as a business that we're going to get more bang for our buck with Certainly. This trend over here, and that's why we go there. A customer profile, what is that for you?
So in healthcare, it is the VP or Director of Patient Experience. Sometimes the VP of Marketing, the COO, because they're the one that has to operationalize the new tool. In banking, it's the Director of Customer Experience, the Director or VP of Marketing, and again, the COO. So I guess it's pretty similar.
And how do you get in touch with these people? Obviously, once you get their email, their phone number, you can call them. But mm-hmm. Is it easy to find these people?
It's not super easy, but there are tools out there which help you find legitimate emails for individuals. And in reality, once you find the back end of that email, so at hatch.com, you know every individual who works here.
Start with hatch.com.
Excuse me, start with hatch.com. Yeah, you can find every other individual and just kind of pick them off one by one.
I always say, and are you familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
So we're actually trying to get Gary on, where he's going to be getting an email from us today. And my buddy actually has done a show with him before. He's a chef, so he actually did a cooking show with him or something like that before. Cool. And I have this thing called Zach Hacks, which basically like figure out what the domain is, mm-hmm. what's their first name at whatever.com. And so my buddy Chris Hill goes, I texted him yesterday, what's Gary's email? And he goes, it's Gary@VaynerMedia.com. And so when in doubt, what's their first name at whatever? And yeah. So what's interesting is I've actually unfollowed Gary for everything. So I had to put time into, the implementation and execution and growing of my business. And so I think he would respect that.
Sure. There you go.
That was a win for you, Gary. So we're going to try and get him on the show. And so we're going to, we'll see. We're sending him I think a fairly personalized email that we spent a decent amount of time on that has something to do with something from his childhood.
Okay, so, nice. Digging deep to find those details.
Yep. And so, figuring that out, is that something that you guys put into, like when you're reaching out to that person? So Susie at Centera, or is she basically getting the same email over and over again?
No, we definitely try to make it personalized. And it's been a lot of trial and error. One, articulating our message clear enough to get them enticed by a cold email, because these VPs don't have time for many cold emails, to be honest. So you have to say something that really sticks out to them and really makes them say, all right, it's worth me giving these guys 15 minutes.
What's the subject line in that?
Most recently, we've been using something as simple as quick introduction, just to get them to open it. Because, I mean, imagine if you got an email, you'd see quick introduction, you think it's a friend introducing you to somebody else.
That's good.
So our open rates are very high.
What's high?
Over 35% on cold emails.
Okay.
And then we've dabbled in a few others more specific to our product, but stuff like that, or perhaps you're interested, maybe of interest, John.
That's interesting. So we like to add the name piece to it.
Yeah.
I was doing some research into political emails maybe 2 years ago and learned that Barack Obama, when he was obviously running, I think, for a second term, he was raising. And the email that did best, what do you think the subject line was? Have you heard this story?
No, I have not.
It's one word.
What?
Hey.
Huh.
And then apparently it's like, hey, donate, whatever. But it's interesting. So I use that.
That seems friendly.
That one works pretty good. The
right,
name thing is good.
As long as you don't have them thinking it's an ask before they even open it, it's a better chance of getting it open.
I start to think that email is now like a text message. So I use email as a text message.
Okay.
So oftentimes and I might know the person, but I will literally in the subject line basically write everything that I need. And usually it's one sentence. And then in the body, I might not even put anything, or just put like, so what do you think? ?
Interesting.
Because you think about the way people are using their phones and they're walking, right? And actually, as a productivity thing, I deleted email off my phone, so I have to go to the email to actually, or to the domain to get it. But look at the way that people get this, right? And so they're seeing these words, and you're only getting so much on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, actually, here's the email to Gary. You'll see it before anyone else does.
Behind the scenes.
So you don't have to say it, but it's not a very long thing. We put this together. We found out that he's a really big fan of that thing.
Okay.
And put it together. And so we'll see.
Very cool.
But it's stuff like that I think people don't put the extra attention into, and then they wonder, why didn't this work? It's like, well, did you do anything to actually
get lazy, just blast out emails?
And I think all too often, we've definitely done ourselves, like we think, oh, like we're there, but you're not there. You're not at that point where you can just send out a blanket email or a blind email and be like, oh, this should work. You guys originally thought about bootstrapping, and maybe you've changed your mind on that a little bit, but what is bootstrapping to you, and kind of how are you guys able to self-fund?
Yeah, we're certainly still trying to bootstrap as long as possible. We're entertaining some meetings with investors just to hear what they have to say and see what might be realistic for us. But yeah, we've been able to bootstrap, like I said, because we were all doing this part-time for so long. We had an early paying customers, the majority of which honestly were overseas. Half our team is over there in Europe. And because of that, we had a pot of money kind of waiting for us to make the leap at full time. So we had to invest very little of our own money because we had some early paying customers. And now that 4 of the 6 founding members are full time, it's the pot's starting to shrink a bit, but we have enough new customers coming in that we're very optimistic about the potential to continue to bootstrap it. So
6 co-founders, if you will.
Yep.
Any employees?
So we have a few.
Employees?
We have a few part-time. We have a few interns in the U.S.
Okay. So people that you could get rid of if things got tough.
Certainly.
Easier than a full-time employee. When you talk, so obviously, if you were to get a couple more customers, you might never take capital from someone else. Like, right. What is entertaining those meetings like?
So one, to kind of get their pulse on our business idea, understanding what valuation they could see as potentially realistic, or what type of money, or at what point they'd be interested in investing. And in reality, we see the potential for investment really just being the individual that's investing in us. So if they can open up their Rolodex to us, because with these big enterprise deals, as you can imagine, it's much harder to get the attention of somebody at a Target than it would be at your mom and pop department store down the street. So the Rolodex is huge.
I think that's something that's missed oftentimes. So we've invested in a handful of companies ourselves, and one of the reasons we started 1004 is because of that kind of connection, or the resources piece, that it's not just the check, right? And the check is nice. It's nice to have an infusion of capital, but what does it really mean if you don't have something behind it? So how do you kind of qualify that person, let's say that they do have the money, it seems like you guys can agree upon a deal. how do you then decide that that person's Rolodex is going to get opened, that they're going to introduce you, and that what you wanted to do to take it from, whatever you guys are making now to, 10 times that in a couple of months?
That's a great and challenging question. I guess you don't know the answer until you get to that point. But to qualify them as being connectors, we've certainly been in talks with a few and then asked them for a few, I guess, goodwill introductions before obviously we commit to them. So
yeah.
You said, such and such, would you mind making a simple introduction? We can take from there. Just a warm intro would be extremely helpful for us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How does that go? Usually they do it, or?
Usually it goes well. Again, we're pretty early in this process, but of our advisors who potentially might be investors down the road, they're very open about it. And like I said, it's been extremely empowering, and it's given us a lot of credibility to have their names behind the introductions.
It's kind of like an anchor tenant in a shopping mall, where if you have that one person, other people will follow along.
Sure.
And be there. So you guys are a little over a year into this. The product is nice. It's very mobile friendly. What are some of the changes that you guys have made throughout time, and how do you kind of decide on, this is the next feature we should build, or this is I should go after the hospital instead of the whoever?
So as far as the product is concerned, we had the luxury, like I said, of doing a lot of customer interviews or studies, because we could offer the extended pilots since we needed the money coming in. So a lot of the features we have were developed strictly based on needs of customers and needs that we saw across a variety of different industries or different customer bases. As far as industry focus goes, I guess that's evolved pretty organically as well. Like I said, we went with the shotgun approach initially, where we said, whoever wants to use this, please come on. We want to see where it makes the most sense. So we have So
shotgun is literally spraying it out there and see what sticks.
Yep. Any industry, anybody willing to talk to you, hey, does this make sense for your burger joint, for your event company, for your hotel, for whatever it might be.
And now, so rifle is the other one, right? Where it's very pinpointed, I guess, where people say, so there's the shotgun versus rifle method.
Yep.
And so now you guys are going after two very strategic places.
Yeah, we've noticed that the importance of what our tool provides is paramount to companies that offer a personalized customer experience. So when you're meeting one-on-one with a banker at, say, Town Bank right down the street, or when you are at a hospital, obviously your interaction with your doctor, it's hopefully not life or death, but it's a very personal experience. And those are the things that really keep customers coming back or keep the patients coming back. There's many banks out there. There's many hospitals.
Yeah.
Why choose Centera over Bon Secours? Why choose Town over
So
SunTrust?
do you think that someone could, and so when you talk about literally walking into the doors, so there's a bank across the street from us. Would you literally go into that door and try and meet someone? Or is it kind of a...
If I was feeling extra confident, maybe, but no, that's not our sales approach.
Okay.
It would be more of, like I said, you're trying to get the warm introduction.
Well, when you knock on the door and you're cold calling people,
yep.
Is it easier to do like a mom and pop that way, but not like a big place?
Certainly, because the decision maker is usually there, or they're not necessarily in meetings.
Very interesting. When you guys are reaching out to people first time, it's literally trying to go direct to that person. Is there direct mail or some sort of traditional or funky advertising that you're doing?
Nothing too funky, just really trying to send them something that'll catch their attention that might be relevant to them. And it's funny, I'll tell you one story. So we have one of our interns in Richmond. You mentioned the cold outreach. He called up a few local companies as a senior student working on a senior marketing project, just looking for information on what they're currently doing to ensure a satisfactory customer experience. And that got him a meeting, an informational interview with a decision maker who he then passed off to us, and we literally closed the deal because of that. So it's pretty interesting the ways you can cut the hacks for these cold introductions.
Yeah, that's very interesting. When I have interns, I like to call them apprentices, and I like them to actually work, not just make coffee, right? And so using something like that is an interesting technique. One of the ones I have this summer, I'm like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to try and outreach from this perspective and tell them that you're going into school, and we don't have to act like you're someone that you're not. But by the way, you're also a business owner, and he is. And so we taught him last summer that, hey, there's this opportunity out there, and leverage that. So we're talking to Paul Jaglowski. Spelling is not required. Is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Nailed it.
That's why I get paid the big bucks. Feedtrail.com is the website, and Feedtrail in one sentence is?
A real-time customer insights platform that helps businesses engage with, understand and ensure customer satisfaction at all key touch points.
And we've used it. It's a great looking app. We used it for some of our events, or for one of our events called Startup Night, just to figure out what people thought about the event. We're talking to Paul of Feedtrail.com about different ways that he has been able to continue to bootstrap his business, go full time, quit the full time corporate America job. Do you regret that at all at this point?
Not at all. It's funny. It was much more terrifying to think about going full time than it's been to actually just commit to and go full time. It's been incredibly empowering to literally wake up every day and work on something that was my hobby.
Yeah.
And now it's a full time job, and we've seen incredible growth since then. So.
In episode 25, I talked to Damon John about kind of that whole thing. Founder of Fubu, Shark Tank, investor.
No biggie.
No biggie. You're number 26. But I asked him, if someone was thinking about starting a business, which they do, and he said, don't quit your day job. And that's something that really stuck with me, because when you have the ability to still get that cash in, it helps.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. I'd love to know, you're now married. Were you married when you started the business?
No.
Well, how has that whole dynamic been, and how much do you tell her? How much do you
so
not tell her?
She's very aware of everything. I mean, she's sitting next to me when I'm working at night.
Is she watching right now? She should be.
No, she's working. Shout out ER nurses out there working hard.
I think it's like Nurse Day or something, right? You get a free donut.
maybe. But no, she's very involved, and honestly, I postponed. I mean, what Damon said, don't quit your day job, is perfect advice, because that's why I think we've been so successful. We were able to prepare to take the leap to full time.
Yeah.
By doing it part time, and it really helps you make sure you have a legitimate business idea before you take that massive risk.
Yeah. You're really supplementing that bank account to make sure that you can be there. And so the same kind of effect, I think, is with when you're thinking about hiring your first employee, is how can you start stashing away some of this money to make sure that your business is going to be okay. And one thing that I like to encourage people to do, I've done it a handful of times myself, is I will start literally taking the money out and putting it into a savings account, even if I don't have that person yet. Because if you can last the month, the 3 months, the 6 months with that money going out, you can probably hire that person.
Sure.
If you need to start pulling into that because finances aren't as good, you might realize that you don't need that person, or you can't afford that person financially yet. And so as you guys are thinking about that, that was just something that I was like, well, I have some extra money. I'm probably going to want someone. What can I do? And I think all too often people will hire some people. They think they can afford it, and they start having employee financial issues, and they don't understand all the things that go into hiring someone, because it's not just $1. It's $1 plus other numbers that you're not expecting.
We were literally talking about that an hour before I came here. Two co-founders and I were talking about potential investment, what we do with a certain amount of money if we raise it, or if we continue to bootstrap, we get to a certain amount, who do we hire at what price and what role? And there's a lot more to think about than just hiring somebody to help you sell, because there's benefits involved. There's a variety of
the emotional side of that. They're not going to, they don't believe in the company the same way that you do.
Exactly.
You're not going to, you're working full time, but your full time is 80 hours a week or whatever it is, and theirs is 40 hours a week, hopefully. But it's completely different game.
Yeah.
And I've thought, as a guy that had a company just by myself for a few years, that was live that way. Now you have a handful of employees. It completely changes.
I could not imagine having a company by myself. I mean, I've been fortunate that I'm part of a team of friends of mine who have taught me so much over the last year. Guys with sales experience, I had none prior. The amount I've learned in the last year from them it's been immeasurable. And the fact that they're friends, we can be as blunt as possible to each other, be honest, no need to worry about each other's feelings because we know we can handle it. It's helped us a lot. And it's the concern of bringing somebody else into the group when we already have such a good dynamic working right now.
How do you guys have those meetings though? So I think some people would call BS on that, right? And say, they probably don't go as deep as they say, or the conversation that they have. Like, how do you guys understand to really get everything out of someone?
You mean
so let's say you feel one way and your co-founder feels another way. How do you know that everything that you feel gets out, and that you guys can? Because I think that it's the communication thing, right? It's like, why is this really happening? What is the root of it? Is something flooding because there's a lot of rain in it, or is it because there's not a dam in the way, right?
Yeah.
Are you guys actually able to dive super deep, and how do you ensure that both parties are getting all that out?
So first of all, we all have learned a lot about ourselves and each other over the last year and a half building this. And we've also all come to trust each other. I mean, there's been very obvious points throughout this experience where a lot of the success rests on one person's shoulders, and everybody's come through when needed. And so obviously we all trust each other and value each other's opinion. We all come from different backgrounds as well. Mine consulting, some other guys in sales, marketing aspect. Obviously there's developers involved as well, but we know that we have unique experience in certain areas, and we trust each other to be like the lead voice as far as each of these different areas is concerned.
How often are you guys communicating, not on like the day-to-day basis, but like really important decisions? Or are you in that point where that's every day anyway?
If I go an hour without talking to one of them, it's unusual. Whether it's Friday night, Saturday night.
Let's make sure this is an hour long. So
I bet if I check my phone, I have a message from one of them.
You probably do.
Literally have a message.
Hey, look at this.
There.
I have a Town pen. As we were talking about all that.
There you go.
You have a message from them.
Yeah,
so
shout out Chris Miller.
There you go, Chris Miller. What's your favorite kind of communication tool?
So
we talked about Slack. Is that it?
We use WhatsApp a lot.
Okay.
So we use Slack a lot as well, but Slack's great because obviously you can share documents through it. You can get automatic notifications when somebody new signs up, when a deal moves to a different channel in the deal flow.
So when you get a customer, you know them.
Yeah.
The notification through Slack.
Every time we build a new profile for a customer, it says such and such. Just built a new profile for.
Is that an integration directly into to Slack, or is it using something else?
It's in a Slack.
Interesting. What's your payment gateway? Stripe, or how does a business kind of sign on? What's that process like?
Old school invoices.
Interesting.
Yeah. So some of these enterprise customers, they insisted on. We literally had to go out and buy a fax machine for one of our first large customers because we had to fax them the invoice. Yeah. So I mean, obviously we're looking at a few others as well, but for right now, it's been as simple as that.
Interesting. So they all pay on time. Are you suffering
of course,
from that?
there's minor of delays, but nothing too stressful.
Interesting. So sometimes technology, and I guess in this case, isn't what you need. It's just making sure that you can invoice that person. Probably because they have controllers and CFOs and stuff like that in their position where they want that information and they want the hard copy or a hard digital copy.
Right. And now for some of the smaller companies, initially, like these mom and pops or the 5-store restaurant chains, they were doing PayPal, like simple automatic invoicing, but these bigger ones, they need something a little more formal.
Very interesting. The last year has been what to you? One word, a series of words?
Enlightening. I didn't realize how little I knew. I mean, there were times where we had these epiphanies late at night on a Thursday, and it's just like everything is perfect. Next day, the simplest issue is causing you so much stress because you're the only one who can take care of it. Having a small team, and especially their team split between 2 continents, it puts a lot more on your shoulders. So we've learned a lot.
Coffee or alcohol?
No more coffee.
You're done with coffee?
Yeah, I don't need coffee.
Wow.
It gets me a little too jacked up at times. Alcohol, sure, in moderation, right?
Do you have those epiphanies and those ahas during alcohol, though?
I honestly had one of the coolest epiphanies during alcohol once, yes. So one way to access our feedback forms is via Snapchat, which is huge for the millennial demographic. Imagine they don't want to type in a URL. Literally take your phone out, take a picture with Snapchat, and you're automatically there. And that happened while out with friends.
There you go. Talking with Paul Jaglowski. Did I still get it right?
Yeah, nailed it. 3
for 3. Feedtrail, feedtrail.com. He's the COO and co-founder there. So it's been a good year. You guys are making some progress. How do you think you got 2 main silos right now, or 2 kind of channels that you're going after? When do you guys start developing and maybe going to a third, or cutting back and just going to 1? How do you guys kind of understand and analyze that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that we're definitely thinking about right now, because there's so much potential out there. There's so many companies who legitimately could benefit from the service we offer. That it's hard to say no if there's an opportunity out there or an introduction that someone's willing to make. But really, I think we're starting to gain some legitimate traction in healthcare, and there's a ton of health systems out there.
Why is it hard to say no? I 100% agree, right? But why is it hard to, like, I had a meeting today and I was just like, no, I learned how to say no. Like, this is what you have to do. But like, why is it so hard to say no?
Because I think it's a two-part answer. So one, every penny counts right now. We need the money. We don't need the money, but the more money, the more comfortable we become, the faster we can scale this thing.
Yep.
And two, it's the fear of missing out, I guess, FOMO. Right? I mean, you want to help as many companies as possible, and it's hard enough to get initial customers. It's a very small team. We're not doing a B2C product where there's just that viral growth. It's the hard hustle sales that take a few months to close these deals. There's really no way around that.
What does hustle mean to you?
It means not putting off making those phone calls, not avoiding following up and following up and following up, not avoiding going above and beyond to make those personalized case studies, those personalized emails, those personalized pain points that you've seen in a previous meeting, just reiterating and finding ways that Feedtrail meets those needs of those companies.
I tend to agree with you too, right? So to me, hustle, and so we have a hashtag Hustle City, and people are like, oh, that must mean you want to work 24/7. I'm like, not really. It really just means, hey, like, if you want something, go after it. You know, don't get pissed off because something didn't happen. But how do you, so you know that you need to do a case study or make sure that you make that phone call. Like, what do you do to be productive, or how do you make sure that your time management is something that's good? Is it a calendar thing? Do you have a rubber band to remind you to call someone? Like, what are you doing?
Right. So of our team, I'm definitely the most, I guess you say, anal about time management. So literally on my calendar, every 30 minutes or every hour is blocked off with follow up with such and such, do this, make sure this.
What's the specific name of, like, follow up with Centera Health? And
exactly. Yes.
Very interesting.
I'll even go deeper into the individual's name. And then also, so for my teammates as well, I mean, one of my strengths on this team is, so Chris and Garrett, they have an immense background in sales. So I go to them with all my sales questions. But when it comes to project management, or I guess team management, I think my background in consulting and my background in leading teams at my previous job helps a lot. So it's stuff that's as simple as sending out to-do lists for the day or for the week for our U.S. operations, making sure this gets done so something doesn't fall behind if one of us gets caught up making phone calls for 4 hours. Or
how do you ensure that your co-founders are doing the same amount of work as you?
You can't ensure that. I mean, I trust them. They're hard workers.
But I think that's it. You trust it, right?
Yeah. Right. And that's a good question, because you don't know. And with us being in different locations, it's hard to know. However, I mean, we all trust each other, and there's certain ways that we're now monitoring follow-ups for sales calls or follow-ups on sales emails, tracking opens, etc.
What type of software do you use for that?
So we are using Contactually currently.
Also based in DC.
Yeah, it's funny. Their VP of marketing is our lead advisor, Joel Meyer, awesome guy, former marketing director at Netflix, tons of background in a variety of customer acquisition strategies. And
I just read a story, and maybe I actually still have it on my phone, from, I think, the founder of Contactually.
Zvband.
It might be. I don't have it on my phone. But I liked it, and it was something about some struggle that they were going through. And I was like, I think in business and entrepreneurship, one thing that is not talked enough about is the downside, right? The emotional side. I think that, and see right there, you did it, right? It's not just about the successes, and there's so much that goes into the emotional side that sometimes people literally can't do anything because they're so burned out on some specific piece, or something was so emotionally tolling. Like, how do you, and so he talked about this from Contactually, and it made me want to reach out to him. And so from an introduction perspective, guess who I'm going to ask
there
to
you
do
go.
that now.
Happy to make it.
But what do you do from an emotional side? What do you do to kind of try and be in a less stressful environment?
So honestly, since starting this company, I've taken up meditating just 10 minutes a day.
Do you just?
No, I don't go out like that. I use the Headspace app.
Okay.
Quick plug. 10 minutes a day, mindfulness, and it's really helped me concentrate, improve my patience, because there's so many things to do on our to-do list that you want to get them all done as fast as possible, but some can't get done that quickly.
Yeah. I did something that I don't like to do. I read an email late on Sunday. No, recently, at some point in the last few weeks. And I didn't like what it said, and it ticked me off. And so I went to bed mad. and I woke up mad. And I try and not look at my phone or the electronics so that I'm not, getting that last hour or two so I can do. So I don't think about business, or I think about something else. And I think that's what Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Workweek talks about. He's like, do these things in bulk. And it sounds like you do a lot of that, but, do you check your email and stuff right before you go to bed? And
I do. And I guess a similar story to you, I occasionally get emails late at night from people we've cold emailed saying, never email me again, remove me from your distribution list. I'm not going to respond saying, okay, but you're not on a distribution list. But going to bed after seeing that, like literally, like you said, I have to break a book back out. All right, let's get my mind off that recent failure.
I've seen some emails that, while they might be sent and they might be on a list, it will literally say in the email, we busted our tail to figure out what your email is. This is not a mass email. Even if it's a mass email, it's not in the sense of, we just bought a list and you got that, right? And so it's, we went through and had someone do the grunt work to find out where this person was and their email. And so I think it was someone that was trying to do interviews for a podcast. And I thought it was interesting because I was like, this person's clearly bulk reaching out to people, but
being very transparent about it.
They told people, hey, like we found your email in a nice kind of way. And I think there's like the Can Spam Act or whatever that is for email, whatever it is, doesn't want you to do that. And so it was interesting to see that someone did that. We're talking with Paul Jaglowski of Feedtrail.com. We'll wrap this up. He's the co-founder and COO there. If someone was kind of in your same shoes and they were at a corporate America, but might be onto an idea, what would you tell them to start doing?
Well, first of all, start building it. That's the common word is entrepreneurs now. A lot of people have ideas, but you really have to
probably more entrepreneurs than entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether it be just once you've built the product, obviously, and for me, it was kind of proving to myself that I was more than an entrepreneur. And I guess now that's been proven. But like Damon said earlier, build that company, build that idea while you still have a full-time job. There's enough hours in the day to get a good amount of work done after work or before work or on weekends.
Did you talk to your bosses that you were doing it?
I had a few confidants within my company, and that was very helpful for moral support. But yeah, my bosses were all informed quite a bit before I left.
And they were okay with that?
Right, they were, because it's not like I was leaving to go to a competitor, and they respected the move.
Very interesting. Favorite kind of place to learn as much as you can?
Favorite kind of place?
Yeah, whether it's a library, a book, a certain website.
Okay. I like reading a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts, I use Audible a lot. So lately, my favorite podcast has been the SaaStr podcast. You heard of that? It's because, we're a B2B SaaS company in Feedtrail.
Okay.
So it's all from founders or investors and that are giving their words of wisdom.
Very cool. Maybe one day you'll be on there.
That would be cool.
The only way you can get it is by reaching out. Paul, I appreciate your time today. He's the co-founder and COO of Feedtrail.com. Check him out and their site out if you guys are looking to get real, in-time, personalized responses for people at your event, at a hospital visit, a restaurant, an airport, and hopefully anything in between. But focused right now on two trends, which are
healthcare and banking.
And if you're in one of those, give him a shout at, what's your email?
paul.jaglowski@feedtrail.com.
See, my theory would not work. Would Paul at work?
No.
You have another Paul there?
No.
You need a ghost account.
Okay. Noted.
Oh.
I'll add that to the to-do list.
Paul@feedtrail.com will soon work, but right now it's paul.jaglowski. Spelling is required in that case.
Check the show notes.
At feedtrail.com. Appreciate your time today, Paul, and continued success.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.